Okay, on the e-bike, we did some scope tests on the phases of the motor, and we come to the conclusion that the controller was not controlling the phases of the motor. But during the course of testing, the problem happened. So we couldn't test anymore and see the thing working. And here's the dilemma I have with that. The Hall sensors, if they were not working correctly, not inputting to the controller, would the controller control the phases of the motor properly? I don't know enough about these to say for sure. But what I think I need to do is test that the Hall sensors are working. Absolutely, the controller needs to know the position of the motor in order to know which phases to power and which ones to not in order to make the motor spin. So I really feel like I need to verify that the phases of the motor are working. And so I wanted to scope the Hall sensors with the motor working. And every day that I've tested it, the motor has been not working. And I knew that eventually, if I waited long enough, it would start working. And so it's now 5 days later, maybe four days later, and I've got it working. And so we're going to do some scope checks, and we're going to try and verify the Halls are working, and then we're going to use it until it quits, and then we're going to verify the Halls are still working. Does that make sense? Is that a good diagnostic process? Is that a big forehead? Yes, it is.
Okay, so I still have the controller disconnected from the motor, but all the wires are hooked up. This blue wire I had to connect with this green alligator clip because I damaged it. But this connector, I believe, is the pedal assist. Going from memory, red would be power, black would be ground, and then the gray, white, and blue would be the Hall sensors. I would expect a square wave on those 3 Hall sensors. Now the best way to test this would be to back probe. Obviously we need to check for power and ground here, but would be to back probe these 3 wires in operation and see the square wave that they produce. And then we need to use the motor till it quits again in order to see that the waveform stays the same from when it's working and when it isn't working. Now the problem with that is these bafang, I'll just show you on this one, shoves all that white silicone into the back of the connector, making it very difficult to back probe, and that sucks. So basically the only way I think I can do this is by piercing these 3 wires, which it's fine because I'm almost sure I need a controller anyway, so I'm going to piercing these wires doesn't hurt anything. I can seal them back up with a product we have for that, or even this white silicone does a good job. Seal up the holes in case this is still good. But I really wish I could back probe, or there was some type of breakout box where I could unplug this and plug into it and have a method for testing it. Maybe I'll make something like that after my e-bike business takes off and I'm making millions of dollars repairing e-bikes. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and pierce these wires to test the Hall sensors. Okay, I've moved the scope leads, and my scope leads are on what I think is the Hall wires. I didn't look it up, and I've pierced those. I'm not hooked into the phases of the motor anymore.
Okay, with it hooked to the Hall sensors, I'm going to pull the throttle. And I'll pause that. Okay, so on this blue trace, you can see there that's the 0 line, and it goes up to 4, what I would assume is 5 volts. You can see all 3 of them are working. So now what I need to do is run it until the motor quits working, and then I need to verify that these 3 Halls are still working. I'm going to change the time frame here a little bit. Well, here, let me zoom in just to see what it looks like. So it's a fairly noisy, like right in here, and at the tops. And it is a square wave, but this one seems awful rounded. They're all kind of that way. I could probably put a filter on the scope and filter that noise out of there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the time frame just a bit. Maybe kind of hard to get this to quit because there's no load on it, because the motor's just spinning freely. Well, I've been sitting here jacking with this for a while, and it's still working. I was hoping to take it to the point where it stopped working, but I've come to realize that since I can't spin the shaft, I'm not going to be able to see the Hall sensors working when the motor stops working. So I don't know if that's going to be a real good test of whether the Halls are causing the motor not to work. But at least I've got a scope pattern of the Halls, and the more and more I look at it, the more I've convinced myself that it is a problem with the controller. So I'm going to order a controller and see if that'll fix it.
I can't remember if I captured this on video, but I do have an error code 21 when I run this motor with the chain not connected, because of course the vehicle speed sensor is on the wheel, and so it sees that the wheel ain't spinning when the motor's spinning, so it assumes the speed sensor's not working. And that doesn't change the operation of the motor. The motor still runs, like right now. But just an interesting side note. Right now it still has the 21 trouble code for the speed sensor. I'm going to turn it off, turn it back on, and it does not show a trouble code immediately for the phase wire being disconnected. So of course when I pull the trigger, it doesn't run.
I of course just came from the camera, and as I pull the trigger, the motor does not run, and the blue trace here is not showing a pattern because I have it disconnected. Now it seems like that would trigger a trouble code, but it is not. I'm going to hook that phase back up. And now it's hooked back up, and it just completely works again. That's just for entertainment purposes and learning about the system and the way malfunctions might be identified. So obviously if you have one phase that becomes disconnected, either through a open in the phase itself or from the wire becoming disconnected, then that's the pattern of what it would look like. And obviously the motor doesn't work.
The new phone book is here. The new phone book is here. Actually, it's a controller from Luna Cycles. Got my programming cable and a gasket and a shiny new controller. Now, the worst part about installing this is having to reroute and reorganize all the wires. You know, it really seems like they'd have a bigger set of fins on these to sink some of the heat. But you ain't got to worry about water intrusion, that's for sure. Even from the factory, they have the connectors all siliconed up. I know this wasn't our normal Volkswagen video, but I enjoy e-bikes, and I thought maybe the tech might be enjoyable to some of you. If you like this video, you learned anything from it, please click the like button. And if you want to donate to the continued production of these videos, visit my website at www.kansascitytdi.com. And if you want to watch some more of my videos, there'll be one right there and one right there. And don't forget to subscribe.